The overarching idea of this show is to celebrate and recognize the rich tradition of African American music, to examine the footprints of those musical giants who have illuminated our pathway to new artistic expressions. Welcome to this edition of Black Music Footprints, a jazz experience. Hello and welcome to Black Music Footprints, the jazz experience. My name is Mondre Moffitt and I am indeed your host. The overarching idea about Black Music Footprints is to simply celebrate the rich and diverse performance traditions of African American music. And what we do is examine the footprints of those musical giants that illuminate our pathway to new artistic expressions of freedom. On today's show, I would like to recognize the bombshell of the 1960s that we call soul music. Yes, indeed, soul music. Now, allow me to give you a little bit of context for the content. In the 1960s, there was a bombshell in African American music. It was a plethora of musical styles that emerged in the 1950s. From the jazz expression, we had avant-garde jazz, or some people call it free jazz, to express what was going on in the 1960s. And then in the rhythm and blues genre of Black music, we had an explosion, an explosive explosion of soul music, which is our topic today. But not only that, there were other styles that emerged in the 1960s in the Black music genre. That was very explosive that we will get into it at a later episode. But all of these styles were connected, even though they were diverse performance traditions, they were connected with the concept of freedom. And so I am very excited to discuss with you the idea of soul music in the 1960s, the bombshell of soul music. In a turbulent time of the 1960s. We know that we had the Vietnam War. We had the assassination of many of our leaders, including Dr. King, Malcolm X. We celebrated the greatness of Muhammad Ali. And with all of these radical changes in the 1960s, the burning of the cities and Newark and also Chicago, West Coast, East Coast, from North and South, East and West, we had an outpouring of music that expressed in protest of all of the things that were happening, the inequality, and all of the other things that were happening in the 1960s. A turbulent time in the century, in the 20th century, this decade of 10 years in the 1960s. And on today, we want to look at soul music, as I said. Now, I like to preface my presentation for you today with the rhetorical question that Dr. King asked in his last writings. The question was, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Dr. King posed that profound, provocative question. And, the musicians had something to say about it, especially the soul artists. They had something to say about it as well. Where do we go from here? And let's start off with the godfather of soul. And many people are asking the godfather of soul, you need to address what's going on in these turbulent times, because quite frankly, he was reluctant at first to address the political overtures that was happening, because he was such a profound entertainer. And finally, he had to speak up, and this is what he had to say.
Put your bad self, say it louder. Say it louder. Look here, some people say we got a lot of malice, some say it's a lot of nerve. But I say we won't quit moving until we get what we deserve.
Brother, we can't quit until we get our share. James Brown, with that proclamation, started a movement that really transcended and transformed who we are, from Negro to black. Say it loud. I just love it because he started off saying, I like for everybody to just say that word, with your bad self. Talking about the greatness of a people with your bad self, that affirmation and reappropriation of our identity with your bad self. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Unapologetically, I'm black and I'm proud. And that provided very much a theme for the civil rights movement. The godfather of soul, Mr. J.B., James Brown. And then we go from the godfather of soul to the father of soul. Guess who that is? None other than the great Sam Cooke. He addressed the question by saying, we're going to keep moving on.
Keep moving on, keep moving on. Life is this way. Keep moving on every day.
Keep moving on every day. The father of soul, Mr. Sam Cooke, so prolific. He led to artists like Marvin Gaye. He led to artists like Stevie Wonder. He led to artists like Aretha Franklin. It was the father of soul, Sam Cooke. So diverse, so musical, this new artistic expression. Here's another sampling. I like this song because it said, the best things in life are free.
All the moon belongs to everyone. The best things in life, they're free. Stars belong to everyone. They claim that for you and for me. Flowers in spring, the robins that sing.
You have to check out Sam Cooke. So musical, so inclusive of the lineage of black music. You can hear the big band of the 30s in Sam Cooke's presentation. The moon belongs to everyone. The stars belong to everyone. And you know, in music and from a musician standpoint, when we train, we said, take a deep breath. The air is free. The oxygen is free. Take a breath because you're going to need a breath to express what you need to express musically. And don't cheat. Scoop up a big breath. It's free. The best things in life are free, and I love that. But the 1960s anthem presented by Mr. Sam Cooke was this protest song, A Change Is Gonna Come.
It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die.
Wow, so you hear Sam Cooke goes from keep moving on with the collaboration with using the flautist, the flute with his voice, that particular tessitura, that blend, and then he goes through this big band, saxes, trombones, trumpets, just swinging hard, up-tempo, the best things in life are free. And then he comes back with this anthem, A Change Is Gonna Come, with the beautiful string instruments and the beautiful horn, French horn, if you will. Just so diverse within his presentation, it's no wonder that we call him the father of soul music, Mr. Sam Cooke. And if that's not enough, we have the great Impressions. The Impressions, Dr. King said that the songs that they wrote represent the unofficial anthem of the civil rights movement. And just one thing I wanted to say about this group, I love this group, The Impressions, because some of the original members, Jerry Butler and one of my all-time favorite composers, Curtis Mayfield. And I wish I had the time to explore to the extent of Curtis Mayfield's music. And I may touch upon a couple nuggets of Curtis Mayfield. But they wrote many songs that became the anthem of the civil rights movement. But check this one out. One of Dr. King's favorite. People, Get Ready.
There's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage. You just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the dealers humming. Don't need no ticket. You just thank the Lord. For the train to Jordan, picking up passengers coast to coast.
Yeah, The Impressions, great group. They formulated in the late 50s from singing the style of soul music called doo-wop. And then Jerry Butler and Curtis Mayfield met in a gospel choir in Chicago and formulated this group called The Impressions. And the rest is history. But I wanted to touch upon a couple of, I can't go without at least hearing a nugget of the great Curtis Mayfield. Check out, first of all, Move On Up. He's still addressing Dr. King. And Curtis Mayfield is one of the most social conscious composers of the 20th century, particularly in the 1960s. Move On Up.
Hush now, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you.
And we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Just move on up toward your destination.
HBCUs are a great gateway to the rest of your life. You're sharpened in a way that brings such potency.
They're teaching a commitment to something greater than the individual.
HBCUs take that time to actually help you.
Everybody don't have to go to HBCU, but buddy, for what it done for me.
Jefferson County students, your future is now. Get ready for Simmons Fest 21, a campus-wide culmination of culture and college for aspiring high school and aspiring middle school students. Your introduction to the legacy of America's historically black colleges and universities. It all kicks off Friday evening at 6 p.m., the Simmons Showcase of Black Excellence. Students and parents will engage with Simmons faculty, friends, and students, all leading up to our feature artist of the evening. And then on Saturday morning, the Simmons Falcon Fair, designed to help students and parents navigate the college admissions and selection process while showcasing the academic excellence of Louisville's HBCU. Register now for this free event, including all meals and all sessions. Text Simmons Fest to 55444. Or for more information, give us a call at 502-776-1443. Get ready for Simmons Fest 21. Friday and Saturday, July 30th and 31st.
The making of you. We are back. I don't want to digress, but I'm about to play a little bit more of Mr. Curtis Mayfield. Of course, he was a leading member and featured artist with the Impressions, one of our greatest groups of the 1960s. Check out this release, Curtis Mayfield, The Making of You.
And a little sugar, honeysuckle, and a great big expression of happiness. Boy, you couldn't miss with a dozen roses. Such would astound you. The joy of children laughing around you. These are the makings of you. It is true, the makings of you. The righteous way to go, little one.
I know you love that, The Making of You. You can hear the influence of Sam Cooke. You can hear the influence of even music out of James Brown's era. With Your Bad Self, The Making of You. Just phenomenal. And in the 60s, you had musical expressions with an elaborate introduction before the singer comes in that allow the artist to bring about all of those different colors and musical instruments that really shape the style of the genre of the music. You know, in soul music, you had these elaborate introductions and endings that set the artist up. The Making of You, Mr. Curtis Mayfield. You have to investigate and examine the greatness of his music. A wonderful guitarist as well, and as you will be able to hear in the music of the Impressions. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we talked about the godfather of soul. Oh yes, indeed, Mr. JB himself, Mr. James Brown. I was fortunate enough to collaborate and play with many of the members in his band. I have a recent release coming out with some of his members in his band, so I'm looking forward to that. And then you had the father of soul music, Mr. Sam Cooke, who later left gospel music and started recording with Specialty Records before setting up his own label, Specialty Records, with Bumps Blackwell, the same Bumps Blackwell that produced Sam Cooke, and Specialty Records produced Little Richard and just a host of others. And then now, from the godfather to the father, guess who? The queen of soul, Miss Aretha Franklin.
Just a little
All I can say is Aretha Franklin said, you better put some respect on it for the profound anthem. And then I don't want to leave without Aretha Franklin. Where do we go from here? A bridge over troubled water.
Don't trouble the water. I won't get it on. Why don't you let it be? Still water run deep. Yes, it do. I know that. Oh, yeah. If you only believe.
Well, you know the rest. Aretha Franklin is letting her musicians have plenty of shine, but being an accomplished pianist and organist herself, a real, true musician. And then from there to rock steady, and the hits and the hits and the hits go on. We will revisit Aretha at another time as she just turns to her father's church out, C.L. Franklin, as we look further and deeper into this great music. Protest music, as one might call it, of the 1960s. And I have to call your attention to a group from Houston, Texas. Started out in Houston, Texas, but some of the members were born in Chicago. The Staple Singers, one of Dr. King's favorite groups. This piece kind of encapsulates the aspect of the civil rights movement and the struggles that the civil rights movement had to go through. The 1965 Freedom Highway piece, only months after the march from Selma to Montgomery, the bloody landmark march from Selma to Montgomery, arm to arm. And the Staple Singers had something to say about it.
Oh, Freedom Highway. Oh, each and every day. Oh, Freedom Highway. Oh, each and every day. Made up my mind, and I won't turn around. Made up my mind, and I won't turn around. There's just one thing I can't understand, my friend. Why some folks think freedom is not designed for all men. There are so many people living their life perplexed, wondering in their mind what's gonna happen next. Oh, Freedom Highway.
Freedom Highway, Staple Singers, gospel group, like in the footsteps of Sam Cooke, gospel group, pop artists as well. They were the unofficial civil rights protest group. Freedom's Highway was a huge success. Staple Singers were called God's greatest hit makers, the great Staple Singers. And at this time, ladies and gentlemen, it is, I believe it's time for us to play the name game, which I do on each show. It's time for the name game. The name game is a game that we play when I call out a name, and I like to get your response. It's like call and response. In 5 words or less, given what we have been discussing a 1960s turbulent time of the 1960s with the diverse musical performance traditions of first starting off avant-garde jazz music, soul music, coming from the genre of rhythm and blues, and we will be discussing more of those particular performance traditions in future episodes. But I'll call out a name. The first name I call out is Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke. What would you say? What would be your response? My response, the father of soul music. The next name I will throw at you for your reflection. Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin. Your response? Well, my response, the queen of soul. Indeed. And here's a good one. Say it loud. Say it loud. What's your response? My response, I'm black and I'm proud. I'd like to thank you for joining us here on Black Music Footprints, the Jazz Experience, SSC Live TV, where truth, justice, and power always prevail. My name is Mondre Moffett. Thank you.